Hi friends, now in this video we are going to see certain functional interfaces like consumer, function, unary operator. So in my previous video I have explained it about how predicate functional interface work and how consumer works. I'll just let us have a small recap about my previous video. So in my previous video I have explained it about what is predicate functional interface, how predicate functional interfaces work, and what are the various scenarios in which we will use the predicate functional interfaces. So as I told before, I mean, if I have a list of array and then if I wanted to remove the empty elements in the list, I can use my predicate. I can write a condition and then I can write my lambda expression based on a condition, and then always predicate will be returning a boolean. So in such cases, we will be using the predicate. Then I have also explained about how consumer works. So consumer is another functional interface wherein it takes uh, input argument of any type and then it returns you nothing, doesn't give you back anything, right? I mean, it has a method name called accept. It just accepts the input that you pass. So this is how we will input, and it just accepts the input that you passed, and it may be whatever may be the data type. It doesn't give you back anything. So when we have a scenarios like printing the elements, in such cases we can use the consumers here, as it doesn't give back you anything. So when you see this example, last example, this is the example for the consumer, wherein we are printing the list and then we are passing the list and then the consumer functional interface here, and then we're just calling the accept method. So when it does the accept method, our objective here is to print the element, each and every element in the list, right? So as and when it calls consumer.accept, it will the control will go here and then it will print that corresponding element here. So this is the example for the consumer. So now we will see about how this function interface works. When you see the function interface, it takes something and returns something. What does mean by that? When it means that it like takes an input argument of any type and then returns an output argument of any or the same type. When I say it can be same or different type. When we say same means assume that I'm passing a string here and then I'm returning a string back here. So when you see this example, I have passed the string here, appending the hello string with a string and then returning the string back, right? So this is nothing but an example for the function interface, functional interface. Yes. So this is a case one. So whereas in case of case two, when you see, again we have written in one more lambda expression which takes string as an input here. As you all know, whichever comes before arrow mark will be an input string, and whichever comes after the arrow mark will be the function definition, right? Definition of the body or definition, whatever way you can term it as. So here we are returning the length of the string. So this is can also be called as a functional interface here, because it takes input as a string and then returns you the integer back. So that's when we have parameterized here as a string comma integer, and then here we have parameterized like string comma string. So this is my input and this is my output. So in such cases we will be using the function interface. Okay. And assume that we have a certain scenarios like I wanted to filter out the element in the list, or that filter out the element in the list, we can use a predicate functional interface there. And assume that I wanted to return the length of the string. In such cases we can use this example function interface. And next we will see about supplier. There is a big or a huge difference between consumer and a supplier. You can see it here. When you see the supplier, it is just opposite to the consumer. Here it takes no input but it returns string as an output here, which means when you see here we are not passing anything as an input argument here, and at the same time we are returning the string object here. I'm just returning the string object and passing the welcome here. So when we have in scenarios like this, we can use the supplier there. So this is how the supplier functional interface we have to define it, and then we have to use it. Then you just have to call the reference variable dot get, we will be able to get the objects that it returned. So when you see the consumer and supplier, you can see the difference there. It takes a particular type as an input and it gives you nothing, whereas the supplier is nothing but it doesn't take any input from you, but it gives you some object, it gives you object of any type. That is when this is called as a supplier. It supplies something, it supplies some object. This is, it doesn't gives you back, it just consumes it. That's when you need to give something to consume. So that's when we are passing the element here, object here, or any type that we are passing it here. That's when this is called as a consumer. That's when it has something, it is accepting something from you. That's when it has a method called accept, wherein when you see the supplier, it is just supplies the object to us back. We are not giving anything, we are just calling them and it keeps supplying it. So that's the big difference between the consumer and the supplier here. Hope so far we are clear what are the different functional interfaces are there and what are used for what scenarios. I have covered all the things about predicate, consumer, supplier and the function interface also we have covered. And next thing is that there is something called unary operator. This is also another functional interface. So this is just an extension of my function interface. When I say extension, this is again an interface which extends my function interface. Yes. When you open the definitions, you will be able to understand the function. When I click on the apply, right, it is taking me to the function interface, which means in the unary operator, it extends the function interface, and at the same time, it is not having any abstract method on its own. All it ensures is that whatever object that you are passing, it gives you back the same object. That is when it calls as unary operator. When you see this example, I am passing integer as an input to this lambda expression, and in the lambda body I am just using the same input argument data type that they passed and then returning back, which means assume that I have a list of integer and I wanted to multiply each and every number in the list by 100 or something like that. When we have a requirements as such, here you can see clearly we are getting the object of a particular type, returning the object of the same type back, but by doing a little modifications here, like multiplying by 100 or whatever little modification to the same object which we received from as an input, and then returning it back the same. In such cases we can use the unary operator here. Got it? And next comes the by function. Hope I have explained the concepts clear.